Okay. So I'm going to start us with our sponsors, and then we'll go right to the Gemara for today. Okay. A year of learning, Dr. Paul Konigsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Konigsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara, Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, Shalom, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bet Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Kessel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, Cheryl Sher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva, Marsha Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel ben Harav Shimon, friends of Joe Wolf, in memory of Joe Yosef ben Chaim, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edel Bas Yaakov. A month of learning by Stanley Presser, in memory of his mother, Leah Bas Yehuda, his mother-in-law, Golda Bas Avram, and his wife, Ruchel Mincha Bat Moshe. Ruth Burian and Judy and Edward Boehm, in memory of Ruth and Judy's mother, Hadassah Bas Ezrael Zelig Miriam, and father Yitzchak ben Yosef for Esther. Jill and Perry Meltzer, in memory of her father Yaakov ben Yosef. B. Pizer, in memory of her mother Razel Bas Shammai and stepfather Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi. A week of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam and Ramona Levine, in memory of Charlie's wife and Sam's sister, Menucha Sarah Bas Yechiel Michal. Michael and Judith Paretsky, in memory of his brother, Chaim Tzvi ben Gershon. Barbara and Sandy Cohen, in memory of his brother, Chaim Shalom Aryeh ben Eliyahu HaKohen. By Zev Kipperman and Sherry Dobicki, in memory of Zev's wife and Sherry's mother, Sheva Libi Bat Reb Moshe. A day of learning today by Milton and Gail Meller, in memory of his father-in-law, Shmuel ben Shlomo. By Mel Grossman, in memory of his brother, David ben Menachem Manish. By Ari and Judy Cohen, in memory of their friend, Alvin Greenfield, Avram ben Yaakov. May Shamas have an Aliyah, Kranka Rafia, Velta Yashir Shema Talia, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good gebenched Yah. Okay, so today's daf, remember that we're on Pei Chet, Amud Aleph. And I kept trying to realize that the phrase I was looking for yesterday was whether something has brera, retroactive clarification, or not. And that was part of the discussion. Okay? So I'm going to start us back at the top of Pechet, even though we did a couple of lines, okay, where they were still discussing, right, the story with Ula then. Remember that he, just as quick review, that he had come to Pampadita. They brought him a basket of figs. The whole basket was very cheap. Okay. How much was it, he asked. They told him 3 zuz for a whole basket. And he made a comment that it seems that if that's the case, Babylonians are busier with business than with Torah study. That night he must have eaten the whole basket. Why? Because it says in any case that he became ill because of the dates, right? And what happened? he claimed that it's like they gave him poison, right? And all of that was only worth a zuz, okay? And so therefore he realized that if this is what happens in Babylonia when they eat this much dates and they still learn Torah, okay, then it's to their credit. And that's where we finished. Babavel ubavlai aske ba'oraita. Right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 7 lines down from the top on Pechet Amud Aleph. Okay? And so the Gemara picks up. Varama Rabbi Elazar, he says, Mai dichtiv. So coming back then, V'halchu amim rabim, v'amru lechu v'na'ale el har Hashem, el beit Elokei Yaakov v'gomer. So now we move from the fact that we saw Hosea talking about future redemption. And so the Gemara picks up on that motif, citing the pasuk, right? That they will go, right, to the Har Hashem, right? So it says, okay, namely, as the Gemara continues there, Elokei Yaakov v'lo Elokei Avraham v'Yitzchak. How come is it that the pasuk mentions the God of Jacob and not the God of Abraham or the God of Isaac? Right? Ella, lo Avraham. It's not like Avraham. Why? Shekatuv bo, because in regards to a pasuk associated with Avraham, it says Har, bo shekatuv Har. Shnei Asher Yomar Hayom Bahar Hashem Yeroeh. Right? That refers, of course, to the Akedah, right? And the Har of Shem. But it doesn't mention Avraham's name. Veloki Yitzchak. And it's not with Yitzchak. Why? Because Shekatuv Bo Sadeh. Because there it mentions the word field. Shneamar V'yetzei Yitzchak Lasuach Basadeh. Okay, that Yitzchak went out to meditate, let's say, in the field. Okay, so both were examples, the Gemara felt, of phrases that identified sacred locations, but without the direct name of the patriarch. Eliki Yaakov Shekaru Beit. Why? Because with Jacob, we saw that they named it a house. Shneamar V'kara et Shem Hamakom Ahu Beit El. Right? Because he called that place the house of Hashem, the house of God. Now, new statement. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Godol kibbutz galuyot kiyom shenivra'u bo shamayim ba'aretz. If we're talking about redemption, and in the future, says Rabbi Yochanan, great will be the day when the Jewish people are rejoined. In other words, they come back together. It will be as great a day as if the day in which creation began. Why? Shneamar v'nikbatzu b'nei Yehuda u'b'nei Yisrael yachdav v'shemo lahem rosh echad v'alu min haaretz kigadol yom Yisrael. Okay, so the nation coming together on that day, and they will give it a special name, the day of Jezreel, Uktiv, and it's also written, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Voker, Yom Echad. So a play on the word Yom there, that just as that first day, okay, where heaven and earth came together, okay, to mark the beginning of creation, so the future redemption has the unification of the Jewish people. That finishes that part of the sugya. Okay? We go now to a new piece from our Mishnah. Remember that if we go back to the Mishnah told us, okay, back on Pei Zayin Amud Aleph on the top, all right, it mentioned the fact, Yatom, right? Sheshachto alav apotropasim, that if it was a minor infant, a minor child, okay, who'd had no parents, and the guardians each, let's say more than one guardian, each of them slaughtered a korban pesach, yochal b'makom shehu rotzeh, that the minor should be able to eat with the group of one or the other guardian. Okay? So coming back now, in the middle of Peichet, Yatom sheshachtu alav apotroposin, v'chule. Shemat mina, it would seem that we learn from this, yesh breira. Again, maybe we learn again the idea of retroactive clarification, that after the animal has been slaughtered, the child can then choose, and then that's appropriate for him to be part of that particular chavura, that registered group. Amar Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera responds, there is a pasuk, however, that says se lebayit, okay, that each house has to have its own animal, mikol makom, regardless, he says. Despite being a minor, the implication is that the child does get to be included, even though he's not born to that household. He gets included in one or the other of the guardian's households. So the Gemara continues. Tanu Rabbanan. Since we mentioned this pasuk, we have a braita. Se labayit. We said it has to be one animal for a household. Milamed she'adam mevi v'shochet al yedei beno ubito haktani. This comes to teach us that a person may bring the korban pesach, have it slaughtered on behalf of, I'm going to say, his minor children, male or female, va'al yedei avdo, and also on behalf of his servant, okay, v'shifchato hakna'anim, on behalf of his Canaanite male or female servants, ben mida'atan, ben shalom mida'atan, whether it's done with their consent or without their consent. In other words, they do not have independent sense of legal status. Aval eino shochet, but he cannot slaughter al yedei beno ubito hagdolim, on behalf of his adult male or female children. Va'al yedei avdo v'shifchato ha'ivrim, or on behalf of his Hebrew male or female servants. Va'al yedei ishto, and not on behalf of his wife, ela mida'atan, unless he has their consent, their agreement, because they are considered individuals who have valid, independent mental capacity to make their own decisions, which, by the way, would imply that a wife apparently could make her own korban pesach without that of participating in the group of her husband. And certainly in terms of adult children or Hebrew servants. Okay? But the important item I want to stress here is the example of the wife, because we will get back to that further in the Gemara. Okay? Now, a braita, Tanya Idach. We have another braita that teaches as follows. Lo yishchot Adam, a man cannot bring for slaughter the korban pesach. Lo al yedei beno ubito hagdolim, not on behalf of his adult children, va'al yedei avdo v'shifchato ha'ivrim, and not on behalf of his Hebrew male or female servants, va'al yad ishto, or on behalf of his wife, ela mida'atan, except in a situation of their consent. Okay? Aval shochetu, but he may bring and have the korban pesach slaughtered, al yedei beno ubito haktanim, on behalf of his minor children, Va'al yedei avdo v'shivchato haKanaanim, or on behalf of his Canaanite servants, male and female. Bein mida'atan, ubein shalom mida'atan, regardless of with their consent or without their consent. V'chulan sheshachtu, and if they all slaughtered, v'shachat rabban aleihen, and also their master slaughtered on their behalf, yotz'in b'shel rabban, they are only satisfying the obligation for Korban Pesach with that which belonged to their master. Ve'ein yotzein b'shel atzman, but they don't fulfill the obligation of their own. Chutz min ha'isha, with the exception of one's wife, she yichola limchot, because she has the possibility to protest. So what does it mean she can protest? That's what the Gemara is going to consider asking. In other words, if she chooses not, we're going to see, to be supported by her husband, okay, and she chooses not to grant him any proceeds from her work. So that's what the Gemara in a moment is going to share with us. Ma'ishna isha. So what's so different? What makes the wife unique in this situation from the Hebrew adult servants or from the adult children? Amar Rava, says Rava, isha v'chol dadamela. No, we should say the Braita means the wife and those similar to her. But the Gemara challenges, ha gufa kasha. But this statement itself of the Braita is problematic. Why? Amart chutz min ha'isha sheyichola limchot. First you say with the exception of the wife because she's able to protest. Ta'ama demache. The reason being that she protests.
Right.
Ha lo machi. But here, if she doesn't protest, nafka b'shel ba'ala, she can only be yotze by that of the husband. V'hakatani, but here then the Braita also teaches, Resha at its outset, v'lo al yedei ishto ela mida'atan, but not by the wife, except with her consent. Ha stama lo nafka. Therefore, here in general, it would appear that she's not yotze, okay, unless she gives her consent one way or the other, right? So that's why it's problematic. Mai, so therefore we ask the question, says the Gemara, Mai ela mida'atan. What do we mean then, except with her consent? Lav da amre en. Isn't it not that she says yes? Ela spistama la'afuke hecha da amar lo. But rather we say it's in general, with the exception where she says no. So she must verbalize, okay, a clear negative response. Otherwise, we assume she's going along with the chabura of her husband.
Right.
But the Gemara is not happy with that, really, because I think that's why it continues. Vahakulam, but about the others, sheshachtu, that they slaughtered. In other words, they had a korban pesach slaughtered. V'shachat rabban alayhen, and also their master had a korban pesach slaughtered on their behalf. Yotz'in b'shel rabban. We say they fulfill the obligation on the part of their master, dibistama, but that's the case in general. Ukatani, but the Braita taught, chutz min ha'isha mipnei sheyichola limchot, with the exception of the wife, because she's able to protest. Amar Rava, and Rava says as follows, Kevan sheshachto, since they had an animal slaughtered, ein lecha, excuse me, ein lecha michui gadol mizeh. You don't have any greater protestation than that. If they went ahead and had their own animal, right, that means they surely don't want to be included in his chabura.
Right.
Okay. Now, let's go to the next piece from our Mishnah. We're dealing with a servant that belonged to two partners. Okay. That's where the Mishnah tells us. Rami le Rav Eina Saba the Rav Nachman. Okay. A contradiction was raised by Rav Eina the elder to Rabbi Nachman. Tanan, our Mishnah taught, Evet shel shnei shutafim, a servant belonging to two partners, lo yachal mishal shnehen, is not permitted to eat from both of them. Vahatanya, but don't we have a braita that teaches that as follows, Ratza mizeh ochel, Ratza mizeh ochel. If he wants from this one, he can eat. If he wants from this one, he can eat. Now, what happens? Amar le Eina Saba, okay, and therefore Ema Saba, Eina the elder said, Va'amre la, and others say, Patya uchma, okay, black pot. Okay, now black pot, I didn't see either of the commentaries, okay, really giving any kind of a clear explanation. So I'm assuming this is not a complimentary statement. Okay. Mini uminech tistayem shema'atata. Between you and me, we'll conclude this learning. In other words, we'll come to a conclusion. What is this referring to? Matniten, our Mishnah, b'tepekapte ahadade. That's when the two owners are strict about one another. In other words, they're very clear that they don't want the servant to eat from both because they're concerned that perhaps then the servant will have a closer relationship or a better work ethic for one versus the other. Braita, our Braita, however, the lo kapte ahadade, the Braita which says they can eat from either one, is where they're not strict. They're not the makpid, one to the other. Okay. New piece again from our Mishnah. Mi shechetzio eved, v'chetzio ben chorin. One who is half servant and half freeman. What's the situation? Lo yochal mishel rabo. He cannot eat from the korban pesach of his master. So the Gemara now tells us, Mishel rabo hu delo yochal. From his master, he cannot eat. Aval mishel atzmo yochal. But from his own, he can eat. That seems to be the implication. Vahatanya. But here, aren't we taught in the following Braita? Lo yochal, lo mishelo, velo mishel rabo. That the Braita says he can't eat from his own, nor can he eat from his master. Lo kasha. That doesn't have to be problematic, answers the Gemara. Kan, right? In one case, b'mishnah rishonah. It was an earlier version of the Mishnah. Kan b'mishnah achrona. Later, it was a different version, a later version of the Mishnah. Ditnan. Why? Because we have it taught. Mi shechetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin. When one who is half servant and half a freeman, Oved et Rabo Yom Echad, he works for his master one day, Ve'et Atzmo Yom Echad, and for himself another day. Divrei Beit Hillel, that's the view of Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai Omrim, and Beit Shammai say, and they respond as we go to the next Amud, right? Tikantem et Rabo. Fine, you may come up with a remedy for his master. Ve'et atzmo lo tikantem. But for himself, you didn't present a remedy. Why? Let's see. Li say shifcha, to marry a Canaanite servant girl, eino yachal. He's not able. Shekfar chetzio ben chorim, because half of him is already free, and that half is Jewish. Lisa bat chorim, to marry a free young Israelite woman, eino yachal. He's not able. She'adayin chetzio eved, because still half of him is a servant. And again, a free Jewish woman is not supposed to be marrying a servant. Yevatel, to give up any marriage. V'halo lo nivra ha'olam ela lepirya v'rivya. But isn't the purpose of the world having been created for habitation? Shenamar, as we find in a pasuk, lo tahu b'ra'ah ela leshevet yitzra ela mipnei tikun ha'olam kofin rabo v'oseh oto ben chorin. Right? So our pasuk emphasizes, right, procreation, and therefore the Gemara goes on to tell us again that because of tikkun ha'olam, for the betterment, let's say, of the world of society, we force the master who has not freed the half to go ahead and free him. Right? V'kotev shtar al chatzi damav, and therefore we write a document that that particular master is owed half his value. So the servant then has to work off that payment for that particular master. And therefore, says the Gemara, V'chazru Beit Hillel lahorot ke Beit Shammai. And therefore, Beit Hillel recanted, and as a result, we taught it as the view of Beit Shammai, and we end that sugya there. Okay, we get to our new Mishnah, right? And on our new Mishnah, okay, we get to a discussion of what I'm going to say two items. Item number one is the particular animal that's supposed to be offered for the Korban Pesach. Item number two is what happens if the master who tells his servant to slaughter an animal doesn't designate the particular animal. In fact, he may forget what animal he told him. And even more than that, the servant himself may forget what animal he was told to bring for slaughter for Korban Pesach. And so that's where our Mishnah is going to take us. Now, Ha'omer la'avdo, one who says to his servant, Tzei ushchot alai et ha'pesach, go out and have an animal slaughtered for Korban Pesach. Shechat gadi, if he slaughters a kid, yochal, he will eat it. Shchat kle, if he slaughters a lamb, yochal, he can eat it. Shachat gadi utle, if he slaughtered both a kid and a lamb, yochal min harishon, he should eat from the first, and as far as the second, that korban is invalid, and therefore it has to be burnt. Now, what happens, says the Mishnah? Shachach ma'amar lo rabbo. Okay? If the servant forgot what his master told him, in other words, which animal, ketzad ya'aseh, what will he do? What should he do? Yishachet tle ugdi. He should go out and slaughter both a lamb and a kid. V'omar, and he should say, Im gedi amar li rabbi, if it was the gedi, right? The kid, okay, is what my master told me. Gedi shalo utle shali. The kid will be his, and the lamb is mine. Ve'im tle amar li. And if it was a lamb, amar li rabbi, that my master told me, hatle shalo, then the lamb is his, ugadi shali, and the kid is mine. Now, goes on the Mishnah. Shachach rabo ma'amar lo. Okay, if the master forgot what he told him, shnehen yatzu lebeit hatzrefa, then both that gedi and that tle just get sent out, right, to the beit sreifa, right? Both become invalid, and they get sent to the beit sreifa. However, the Mishnah adds, upturin mila asot pesach sheni, but they are both exempt from having to bring another korban on pesach sheni. We're assuming, of course, that what happened, that this was after they did the sprinkling of the blood. If it was done before the sprinkling of the blood, then they probably will have to bring a korban on Pesach Sheni. Let's see what the Gemara wants us to understand. Gemara says pshita, going back to our original case, right? Isn't that obvious? Shachat gadi yochal. If he slaughters, right, the kid, he eats it. Afal gav deragil betla, even though he might be used to having a lamb for his korban pesach. Shachat tle yochal. If he slaughtered the lamb, he eats it. Afal gav deragil begedi, even though he might usually in the past have been used to having a kid for the korban pesach. Shchat gedi utle, if he slaughtered a lamb and the kid, yochal min harishon, where we say he eats from what was slaughtered first, vahatanya, but here aren't we taught in the Braita, ein nimnin al shnei psachim ke'echad, that one cannot be registered for two, let's say, Pesach offerings at one time. Matniten b'melech umalka. Now, our Mishnah may apply to the situation of the king and the queen. Vahatanya. But again, aren't we taught in the Braita, ein nimnin al shnei psachim ke'echad, that we're taught that one cannot be registered for two different Pesach offerings at the same time. Uma'aseh b'melech umalka. And actually we have an incident that occurred with the king and the queen. Okay? As we go through some more of the Gemara, we're going to see that the commentaries were assuming that we're talking about Agrippa the First, as it was the king, and Shlom Tzurim. Okay? So what happened? So there was this, excuse me, incident. Sha'amru la'avdehem, that they said to their servants, right, the following. Tza'u v'shichtu aleinu et Pesach. Go out and slaughter for us an animal for Pesach offering. V'yatzu v'shachtu alehen shnei psachim. And the servants went out and slaughtered 2 offerings. Ba'u v'sha'alu et hamelech. They went and asked the king, what's to be done? Amar lehem lechu v'sha'alu et hamalka. He told them, go and ask the queen. Ba'u v'sha'alu et min hamalka. They went and asked the queen. Amra lehem, and she said to them, lechu v'sha'alu et Rabban Gamliel. Go and ask Rabban Gamliel. This is Rabban Gamliel the elder. Ba'u v'sha'alu et Rabban Gamliel. They went and asked Rabban Gamliel. Amar lehem, and he said to them, Malka umelech da'atan kala alehem. Okay, the king and the queen. Okay, doesn't mean that they are lightheaded.
They're not so bright.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if I mean not so bright, and as they're not focused. Okay, they, in other words, they're busy with other kinds of issues. All right, their head isn't in that place. Right? Sometimes we say that expression, right? All right, and so therefore, yochlu min harishon. Okay, they should eat from whatever was offered first. Ana, but we, however, common people, lo nochal, lo min harishon, v'lo min hasheni. We are not able to eat from the first or from the second. Therefore, that's why when they slaughtered the 2 of them, they have to bring it to the Beit Sreifa. Right. That story is what satisfies what we saw before. Now, since we're talking about an incident with the king and the queen and Rabban Gamliel paskening for them, how about another story? V'shuv pam achat. And in another situation, nimtzeit halita'a b'beit hamitbachim. They found a lizard, okay, in the kitchen, okay? Ubikshu l'tamei kol haseuda kula. And the cooks, therefore, sought to render the entire meal impure. Ba'u v'shalu et hamelech. They went and asked the king. Amar lehem, he said to them, lechu v'shalu et hamalka. Go and ask the queen. Ba'u v'shalu et hamalka. They went and asked the queen. Amra lehem, lechu v'shalu et Rabban Gamliel. They said, go and ask our mashgiach, Rabban Gamliel. Okay? Ba'u v'shalu otu. They went and asked him. Amar lehem. And this is what he said to them. Beit hamitbachim roteach otsonen. Was the kitchen at the time that you discovered the lizard, were things boiling? Was it hot? Otsonen. Or were things cold? Amru lo roteach. They said things were hot. Amar lehem. And he said to them, Lechu v'hitilu aleam kos shel tzonein. Go and take a cup of cold water and pour it on the lizard. Hochu v'hitilu aleha kos shel tzonein. They went and poured a cup of cold water on the, right? V'richsha, and the lizard quivered. In other words, it showed it was still alive. V'taher. And Rabban Gamliel therefore said that only a dead lizard renders items tameh. A living lizard in this case does not, and therefore the meal is tahor. Okay? Rabban Gamliel, kol hasuda kula. He therefore basically said the entire meal was acceptable. Okay, so what do we learn from this? Says the Gemara, Nimtza melech talui b'malka. We see that the king relied on the queen. Nimtzeit malka tluya b'Rabban Gamliel. And we see that the queen relied on Rabban Gamliel. V'nimtzeit kol hasuda tluya b'Rabban Gamliel. And we see that the entire meal relied on Rabban Gamliel. Okay, important to have a good mashgiach.
It's possible. This means that when it comes to kashrus in the kitchen, it's the wife who knows what's going on in the kitchen better than the husband.
Very true. Very true. Okay. Coming back now to our Mishnah. Shachach ma she'amar lo Rabbo. Okay. What about if the servant forgot what the master told him? So Gemara asks a very direct question. Shili. Okay, who? Right? Ma shekana avad kana Rabbo. How can you say, remember the whole Mishnah said, and we saw that he could go and buy two animals, and therefore one could be for the master, one could be for him. But how is that possible? Because we have a concept, and the concept is that whatever the servant acquires, it's like the master acquires.
It belongs to him.
Right. So Amar Abaye. So Abaye then says, as an explanation, what should the servant then do? Holech etzel ro'eh haragil rabo etzlo. He should go to the shepherd, who his master, let's say, normally visits. In other words, normally acquires his animals from. Denechele betakanta. The rabbi, okay, for whom it would be an easy remedy for his master. Okay, he goes to the shepherd, and he explains the situation to the shepherd, and therefore the shepherd tells him specifically what umakne le chad minayhu, and he sells the servant one of the animals, almanat she'en l'rabo reshut bo, on the condition that the master does not have any possession of that particular animal. Okay? So therefore, then the servant can go back and say, if it's this one that my master wanted, that's his, and the other one is mine. If it's the opposite, so forth. Okay. Now, what happens, says the Gemara, Shachach Rabo ma she'amar lo. If the master forgot what he had told him. Amar Abaye, again Abaye's attempt to explain. Lo shanu ela sheshachach achar hazrika. This only implies that he forgot after the sprinkling. The ba'idna de izrik dam, that at the time that they sprinkled the blood, have chaze la'achila, that then the animal was suitable for eating. Aval shachach lefnei zrika, but if he forgot before the sprinkling, the chi azrik dam lo have chaze la'achila, because at the time when they sprinkled the blood, it was not suitable for eating. Chayavim la'asot pesach sheni. Then he is obligated to bring a korban Pesach on Pesach Sheni. Now, says the Gemara, Ika dematne la abraita. There are those who taught Abaye's explanation on the latter statement. Chamisha shenitarvu orot pschehem. There were 5 individuals whose animal hides for their korban Pesach got mixed together, zeh b'zeh. And what happened? V'nimtzeit yabelet be'echad mehem, and there was found a wart on the hide of one of the animals, which would render that particular animal pasul. Okay? Therefore, kulan yotz'im lebeit hasreifa. All of them must go out, all 5 must go out to the place of burning. Upturin me'ela asod pesach sheni. And they are exempt from having to observe Pesach Sheni. Amar Abai, and Abai then says, Lo shanu ela shinit arvu la'achar zrika. And here we say, here's where Abai's explanation came, that they only taught this when it occurred after the sprinkling. The ba'idna da izrik dam, that at the time that they sprinkled the blood, miha have chazi la'achila. Nevertheless, it was still suitable for eating. Aval nitarvu lefnei zrika. But if they became intermixed, the hides before sprinkling, chayavim la'asot pesach sheni, that they are obligated to bring an offering on Pesach sheni. Now, says the Gemara, man de matne amit matnitin, the one who taught Abaye's statement regarding our Mishnah, kol shekain abraita, certainly on the latter case. Man de matne abraita, but the one who taught it on the latter case of the mixed hides, aval amatnitin lo, but on our Mishnah no. Kevan de ksherin ninhu. Why? Because they were suitable. The itkar, because if he remembered, have chaze la'achila, then it would be suitable for eating. So the Gemara says, kame shemaya galia. Okay, that would be reviewed, then that would be revealed in heaven. Now, Amar Mar, but the master has said the following, Upturim mila'asot Pesach Sheni, that he's exempt from bringing a korban on Pesach Sheni. Vaha ikechad delo nafki, but isn't there at least one of those hides, right, that had the wart, that implies that at least one of those people should not be yotze on their korban Pesach obligation. Umishum delo ifshar hechi la'avid, and since it's not possible to know exactly which one it is, how is it possible to proceed? Lite kol chad vechad Pesach, says the Gemara. Let each one bring, excuse me, a korban Pesach. Kamai techulin la'azara, the arba'a minayhu avdei lahu. If that's the case, then they're going to be bringing non-consecrated animals. 4 of them would be bringing non-consecrated animals into the temple precinct, right? And they're not acceptable to do that. Laite kulhu chad Pesach. So let them all bring one korban Pesach. Nimtza Pesach ne'achal shelo l'menuyav. If that's the case, then we have an example of a korban Pesach that's not being eaten by those that had registered together for it. Hi, my. So what is this? What do we do? Nite kol chad minayhu pischo. Let each one bring his own korban Pesach. V'nitne v'nema. Let him bring it and be counted and register. Edd ba'al mum, if it's his that has the blemish. Hai da'aite hashta nihave Pesach. Right? Here, okay, since he brought it now, okay, that it be considered the korban Pesach. V'edidei tam. And if his is the one that is not, all right, to be thought to be the korban Pesach, and is simply a normal korban, in other words, it might be then considered shlamim, hai da'aite hashta nahave shlamim. So let that then be considered a shlamim. Okay, so continue just a little bit. Lo efshar mishum da'ika chazev v'shuk de kohanim. That's not possible either, says the Gemara, as an as a solution. Why? Because regarding the shlamim, there's a portion of those, namely the chazeh v'shok, right? The hind quarter and the breast of the animal, the kohanim that belong to the kohanim, hu da'achlele, that they're permitted to eat it. V'naite kol chad v'chad kohen b'hadeh. So let each one of them bring their own kohen and give it to him. So what happens? The Gemara then says, Hai kohen hechidami. That kohen, how is it supposed to be? What's it compared to? I da'avid Pesach. If he carries out the offering, the Pesach offering, Dilma hai Pesachu, v'nimtza Pesach ne'echal shelo lemenuyav. If that's the case, and that's, so to speak, the real Korban Pesach, then we have an example of a Pesach offering being eaten not by those registered. Ve'idelo avid Pesach. And if he doesn't carry out the Pesach offering, dilma shlamim hu v'lo avid Pesach. Perhaps then it's a shlamim, and he did not fulfill the Korban Pesach. Okay? So the Gemara, we're going to stop right there. And the Gemara then is still going to try to deal with a solution to what this complicated issue could still be. And that's where we'll pick up tomorrow. Okay? So will everybody stay well, take care, and right, and be well. Bob, I can't hear you. You're muted or not?
I don't know. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess I had a different microphone on. The art scroll has a note on
Yeah.
that black kettle, the black pot, whatever, you know. I know we have the expressions of a kettle calling a pot black or something, but here it seems as though it's a compliment when you call someone a black kettle, according to this note 24, I don't know if I forgot on which page, because it means that they are engaged in Torah studies. So perhaps, you know, it was not a Ganai, but a Shvach.
Oh, well, okay. All right. The Koran apparently did not even have a comment on it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay, thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Be well, everyone.
Everybody take care, be well.